Today, I had a quizzical look from my girlfriend as I bought some marbles from a charity shop. If you read the book, you'll see that he discusses minuscule ways to significantly change your life. One of the suggestions is this: if you want to visually see how far you have come, it helps if you can give it a visual perspective. Each time you do one small act, it moves you towards your bigger objective. If you want to simply lift a marble and place it in a container each time you complete a task, the bonus is you can see it. Today I tried it. The intention was to place a marble in a jar, and if I completed 1,000 words, it would result in an article. The truth is, it resulted in this article that's over 3,000 words long. If you're ever swathed in melancholy, wondering why, even when you set off with the best intentions, you unfortunately find yourself shifting off course, then this book's for you. Alternatively, if you're exploring the unpredictable pitfalls of life, throwing you another unexpected curveball, who isn't? This offers gentle and relevant instructions. If you want to achieve more, then this is the poster child of instruction manuals, giving baby steps for massiveness. Atomic Habits is a must-read. I can fully envisage that it could give you a roadmap as to where to start, bit by bit, without letting the entirety of the journey overpower you. I'll let you know how I get on, but here's another admission. I'm quietly excited about the progress so far. I became aware of this intriguing book when Dan Coe rather enthusiastically spoke about it. He's an author whose book I also read. These authors were a mystery to me up until 2 weeks ago. The Art of Focus initiated me, and again, it was far removed from an also ran. Dan writes 1,000 words a day, and the reason I do is of late attributable to these two books. I found similarities between him and myself. He was a photographer previously, with an interest in Photoshop and lifting weights. I've trained consistently for over 30 years, since the age of 23. Recently, while I avidly watched yet another video of Dan's, he said something like, anyone who ever reads Atomic Habits could never write another passage without thinking of the contents of James Clear's books. If you're struggling to maintain and improve your habits, this is an essential guide. So here they both are, Dan and James, the doers in life, the go-getters, the ones who faced incredible setbacks and personal challenges in differing formats and fought through tremendous personal battles. The ones who gallantly somehow used their lives as glowing testimonials of what's possible. Dan found himself flummoxed by the apparent alienation of the public's eyes on his fabulous pictures and set about, with great effect, on getting to the all eyes on me stage. He learned multiple methods of coding and built his social skills with all the methodical precision possible, mimicking the attention to detail of a military commander orchestrating a covert but exceedingly determined military operation. He accompanies his words with his imagery, a distinct array of graphical, charcoal and white imagery created by Adobe After Effects. It's both entrancing and really like a modern-day simplified Michelangelo illustration. Yeah, I'm reading again, and they are two great and very influential authors, James Clear and Dan Coe. These authors are the ones who ventured through the mud and the blood to the green fields beyond. How fabulous! Through the pages of a book, you should be left feeling exceedingly proud of people until a few days ago were only strangers. How intriguing that you might allow them the privilege of shaping the course of your own life. How remarkable that they have the tremendous capacity to influence you, and if you internally allow them, their teachings can potentially help you radically change great swaths of your life and aspects of yourself. Unlocking the Inbox, the Power of Response. I've never been someone easily persuaded. There have been a few exceptions, the beautiful woman I'm with now being one. Oh, and cakes. I'm a bit of a one for cakes. So I made a deliberate effort to soak in the essence of the authors I've been reading recently. Authors who, though relatively young, have incredibly good insights, ahead of their time. I saw it as a recipe for uncovering fresh perspectives. As you can see, I came to this particular part of the story and thought it would be appropriate to praise literary icons, and do so because I think it's important to give dues where dues are rightfully deserved. These are incredible insights that have the power to help you press on, a marinade for unleashing innovative potential. They give you the courage to venture through the mud and the blood to the green fields beyond. For a few weeks now, I have been writing emails addressed to people who head huge institutions, multi-million pound companies. The truth is, the emails are 0.1% of the full story on the back of countless calls I've been exploring. Despite the idea I put forward highlighting a way to make an awful lot of money in excess of £1 million and subsequently massively change the lives of people affected by cardiovascular problems and fund additional education and research for others, none of the people I wrote to saw fit to grant me any response. What's more, thereafter, I self-analysed and looked within myself and explored if I had not explained my concept enough. I then set about doing so. Could I mused, have let my enthusiasm be confused with pressure? I had always thought of myself as an effective communicator. There had been proportions of my life where I had been very capable of placing my case in a way that attracted the right attention. One or two had appeared on several major television stations. What was sort of puzzling was my thoughts were so welcome then. In turn, the message or the way I approached it had been considered interesting enough for Fleet Street to weave it into their own publications and several newspapers. I decided to change my direction. So I then set about writing multiple other emails and creating small presentations that simplified it, one of which you can find in the links. It's called Sweet Shop. Still, to no avail. Mind you, we're only a week in on that one, but they were gathering a little bit more traction. People were retweeting them. Social interaction has never really been my first go-to port of call. Nowadays, I am essentially, proudly, very private. I have little courage or faith in social networks. I don't believe they are governed well enough. That said, they are an integral part of modern-day communication, and I believe they run amok with projectionists and ego-orientated people obsessed with capturing the moment rather than enjoying the fun and living in it and enjoying it as it stands. Not to mention the opportunists and snakes creeping through the back door. But surely the heads of corporate companies had an obligation to answer my emails. Day by day, I was becoming appalled, seemingly by the second, at roadblock after roadblock. I steadily diversified and wrote to others in other institutions and also to people within the public eye. What I rapidly became aware of that it was very difficult not to become dissatisfied with the lack of response. Indeed, the common denominator was ignorance. Nobody was answering these mails. I couldn't quite fathom it, and when I did get an occasional reply, it was generic, especially when some particularly prominent people in the public eye orchestrated PR that on the face of it was highlighting one message while stonewalling me with another. They were unreceptive to the proposals I had or innovations to pursue the avenue to create funds. So now I find myself wondering just what I have to do and forcing myself to become curious rather than judgmental. It doesn't take a lot of personal enlightenment to realise that curiosity is by far the greatest and most productive character trait that will allow the continuation of what I consider to be imperative, an imperative ongoing goal, i.e. to assist charitable institutions in gaining over £1 million within the first year of operation. Diversifying, I then thought about creating a newsletter. Resell Decadence, see the links, was born. Perhaps Dan Coe and James Clear utilised some of these tenacious traits that I'd had to learn on the way. Necessity is the mother of invention, I'd heard. I know there's a way from deep within the integral pathways of my mind. There is a resolution that will be found. It's just going to take some time. I am lucky, very lucky. I have a right-hand man, a woman actually. She's unrelenting, and as unrelenting and determining as anyone I've ever known. Perhaps the best ideas aren't meant to be immersed in simplicity and immediately actionable. Perhaps the fulfillment of dreams only feels incomprehensibly more satisfying when the naysayers and disinterested, not to mention the rude, suddenly hear from another source that whilst they ignored someone else was gobsmacked and listening intensely. While some clicked a mouse on delivered emails sending them into trash, my resounding hope was that someone else would have enough foresight to willingly persevere. It would surely only take one to create a knock-on effect. One person who understood and acknowledged my idea enough to make an insurmountable movement in the right direction. A direction that, like the books above, could change the course of millions of people's lives. Irrevocably for the better. What I can't figure out is why that other person wasn't the person I was writing to, or the subsequent people I then indeed wrote to. A common thread among those who achieve greatness is their refusal to give up, even when faced with skepticism and doubt. They understood that ideas, no matter how revolutionary, often face initial resistance. Instead of succumbing to discouragement, these individuals persevered, continuously refining their concepts and strategies. Outside of my small but valid story, now 2 months in, what does this say about the futility of the lack of communication on the World Wide Web? Should we expect the www to really stand for the World Wide Wait, no matter how great or prolific the institution or company? To stand for the World Wide Wait, no matter how serious the cause? If so, the existential question is, what on earth have we amounted to? Are we really in a position where the new normal in 2025 is to willingly accept it? What's the public's perception and emotion about this? Feel free to let me know. I think we are amidst a rapidly escalating and growing lack of faith. If this is the new norm, it causes significant damage to social stability, especially when ideas are disregarded and people, for their reasons, reduce the likelihood of rational deliberation. I am of the mind that it's my obligation to urge critical evaluation and not simply accept it as a given. Isn't there anything else but the stifling of progress and the perpetuation of harmful systems to be gained by this? Aren't we looking for an evolution in digital life? Do we not remember the thing that excited us to pieces in 1983, when the net was first created for general use and the public thrived on it? Seemingly, it has become apparent that the internet will continue to feature both positives and negatives. Have large companies evolved into the comfort of paid PR to facilitate the story and beef out the good, where perception reigns supremely and the reality is just a minor inconvenience? I put it to you that not only is it patently apparent that there's something wrong afoot here, but there's an important moral obligation to actively enthuse over new ideas, specifically when they have the real potential to radically pole vault change and massive continued financial prosperity. If an industry leader in charity retail saw its turnover increase by just 2% last year, could there be a crucial argument for the door to be opened on additional and innovative suggestions and measures to increase this figure, and, when successful for them, to play an integral part in the continuation of their success in other stores? Let's celebrate those who prioritise integrity and substance, and though biased, leave some room for innovation, i.e. my idea. Isn't it my time? Aside from that, who wouldn't ever want to be associated with fresh ideas that spark additional drive and progress? Come on.